I did not expect for this spooky story to come with a picture, but when I saw the picture, I got so freaked out. So this guy is like in a podcast. I'm gonna put the name in the caption so that you guys can go and look for it. It is in Spanish though, so just keep that in mind. So basically, they asked the guy if he has ever seen La Llorona, and he says yes, and this is a story that he says. So he starts explaining that he worked at a hospital, and on this particular shift, he had to stay there overnight. It was like a 24-hour shift, basically. Normally, when they do a 24-hour shift, they ask them to go to sleep in the hospital, and they have like specific rooms for them to sleep in. This particular night, he decided not to sleep, and he found himself really tired. He was in charge of taking care of this little boy. He might have been around 4 or 5 years old, but he was really sick. He says that his back was towards the little kid's room, and that from what he could see, there was like a window, but it was more like a mirror. So whatever he was looking at, he knew was behind him. And what he sees through that is behind him in the moment is what he describes as La Llorona. He says that this happened around 3 in the morning. Nobody else was in the hallway other than him, and that he immediately pulls out his phone and takes a picture. He does say that the second that his eyes locked in on this woman or whoever it was, he did feel very scared, like his body had a reaction. Now let me show you the picture. So mind you, this is behind him. This is reflecting on this glass behind him. I would never turn around. I'd be walking backwards for life. He swears that this is the picture that he took. No, thank you. What the fuck? Now, he does say that he made it a point to turn around and look because, yeah, he was scared, but he's like, I need to turn around. I need to see what this is. And the second that he turns around, there is nobody in that hallway at all. He went through the different rooms just to make sure that it wasn't a person or like somebody had sneaked in there, and that nobody was in any of the rooms. He has no explanation how this woman could have just disappeared within seconds of him turning around. So he's obviously showing this picture to the guy and the girl that are with him in that moment, and they're looking at the picture, and the girl's like, oh, I don't think that's La Llorona. I really feel like this is death. And that's exactly what I was thinking when I saw the picture. But yeah, what do you guys think?
What if you heard what sounded like your dad calling to you from the other side of your front door, but it was impossible for him to be there? Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into today's scary story. Back when I was around 11 or 12, there was one night that felt really off. Normally, I could hear cars outside, people talking, laughing, but that night it was completely silent. Too quiet. My dad wasn't home at the time. He had gone to Mexico to visit my grandparents, so it was just me, my mom, my sister, and my cousin. My cousin was staying with us because his mom was working a late shift. It was around 10 or maybe closer to midnight, and we were all sitting in the living room watching a movie when suddenly we heard a knock at the door. We weren't expecting anyone, so we all looked at each other, confused. Then we heard a voice. It was my dad telling us to open the door. I started to get up, but my mom immediately pulled me back and told me no. She said my dad had just called her and told her he had just landed in Mexico and wouldn't be back for at least 4 days. So if that wasn't my dad, then who was at the door? My mom yelled out, asking who it was. The thing on the other side said, "It's me," and said my dad's name. My mom said, "That's not possible. I just spoke to you. You're in Mexico." That's when the voice changed. It started yelling, screaming for us to let it in. Then suddenly, everything went quiet. We were all terrified, so we stayed in the living room together and eventually fell asleep there. But around 2 a.m., we were woken up again. This time, it sounded like my aunt. She was knocking on the door saying, "Let me in. It's freezing out here." But we didn't believe it. After what had already happened, there was no way we were opening that door. My aunt was a calm, patient person. She wouldn't have been acting like that. Then it started again, scratching at the door and screaming. We stayed completely silent. I remember crying, my cousin was shaking, and my mom was trying to calm us down. My sister somehow slept through all of it. After what felt like hours, it finally stopped. None of us slept for the rest of the night. When morning came, we finally went outside. A few days later, our neighbor asked my mom something that made everything worse. They asked if she had come to their house late at night because they said they heard her voice outside, asking for help, but my mom had never left the house. I don't remember much after that, but about a week later, we moved away. Oh, I really liked that one. Let me know what you thought about this one in the comments. If you want to hear me read your scary story, please email it to lidslunacysubmissions@gmail.com. Long-form content available on my YouTube channel. You can subscribe here on TikTok for a little bit of extra content here and there. Crochet patterns and plushies are always available on my Etsy. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Bye.
My grandma's house is extremely haunted. Story time. This morning, I had to go by my grandma's old house to take my old man's truck to a guy who fixes tires. It's been a while since I went down there because every time I go, something scary as hell happens to me, so I tend to stay away. So I was following behind him, and right when we got up up to her driveway, the whole dash goes black. The touchscreen, speedometer, everything. I have no headlights. It's foggy. I can't see the road. I had to stop. And where was I? Right at Grandma's driveway. And I'm mashing buttons trying to get stuff to cut back on, but it's not working. And then I get this cold chill like the temperature dropped. And then all of a sudden the truck cuts off. And when I look down the driveway, there I see it. This thing is standing underneath the street light at the end of the driveway, and that light starts blinking on and off, and finally it cuts off, and now everything's dark. And I'm thinking to myself, I knew not to come over here. This ain't the first time this has happened. Now I got no cell service, can't call out, and I'm stuck. Just like when I was a kid, standing there waiting on the bus, the damn light would blink on and off and then cut out, and then you get the feeling like something was there with you. You know it ain't good because it stinks, it makes you sick to your stomach, and all the hair on your body stands up, and you know you better get the hell away from it fast. Man, it felt like I was reuniting with something dark that I had not felt since I was probably a teenager. When I tell you I started yanking that key trying to crank the truck, I damn near broke the key, but it would not start. Then something hit me like, you need to come home, back to your home place. You belong here. And then my truck finally crunk up. And I was that close to going back to Grandma's house. I put the truck drive and everything. I was driving up the driveway when my partner called me. So I answered and he said, I've been calling and texting you for 10 minutes. You were just right behind me. Where are you? And I said, the damn truck cut off. I got stuck in Grandma's driveway. And as I'm backing out the driveway, I got this overwhelming feeling of guilt. Like, why are you leaving? You belong here. Don't leave. But I did. And then the mechanic calls a while ago and says he can't find nothing wrong with the truck. It's running perfectly fine. No blown fuse, no messed up wires, no shortage, nothing. You know, besides needing that new tire, everything else is running fine. He even put the machine on it and nothing came up. I'm not stupid. I know it ain't the truck. It never is the truck. It's always the damn place. It's cursed. Sometimes when I'm sitting here, there's just something that calls out to me from the old home place like, come home. I get this pit in my stomach like, that's your family's old home place. They were born, lived, and died there. You belong there. Come back. But the other side of me says, no, you dumb bitch. You grew up there. You know what's there and it's not good. It's cursed. There's nothing but evil there. Never go back. I just started crying because I feel so torn. You can ask anyone in my family and they'll all tell you that place is cursed. They don't want to live there. There's something wrong with the land. Nobody knows what it is. All we know is Grandma bought the land, we cleared it, we built the house, and then all hell broke loose. It was haunted, and nobody wanted to stay there, but we had to because we sunk our money into it. We couldn't leave. Anyways, that's how my morning went. How did your morning go?
What would you do if you heard something scratching from underneath the floor of your house? This story was submitted by a viewer who experienced exactly that when they were 8 years old. When I was 8, I lived in the Philippines with my grandparents. My parents were always busy with work, so I stayed with them most of the time. Their house was old and a little run down, but I'd gotten used to it. There was only one place in the house that always made me uncomfortable, a small storage room at the end of the hallway. The room itself was tiny and packed with old junk my grandparents had collected over the years. Boxes, broken furniture, things they never used anymore. They told me they hadn't really moved anything in that room since they first moved into the house. But something about it always felt wrong. Whenever I walked past the door, I felt this heavy, uneasy feeling. Sometimes, if the house was quiet enough, I could hear faint scratching sounds coming from inside the room. I told my grandparents about it a few times, but they always brushed it off. Behind the house there were woods, so they assumed it was probably some kind of animal. But the sound never really felt like it was coming from the walls. It always sounded like it was coming from the floor. One night, while my grandparents were asleep, I woke up and needed to use the bathroom. The hallway lights were off, and the only light came from the moon shining through the windows. I stepped out of my room and slowly walked down the hallway. To get to the bathroom, I had to pass the storage room. As I got closer to the door, I suddenly felt that same heavy feeling again, like something was slowing me down. And then I heard it, the scratching sound. But this time it was much louder. The whole house was silent, so I could hear it clearly now. It sounded frantic, like something was desperately trying to escape. And it wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from underneath the floor of the storage room. The scratching got louder and louder, and I froze in the hallway. My heart felt like it dropped straight into my stomach. Whatever was under that floor sounded like it was trying to dig its way out. I finally snapped out of it and ran to my grandparents' room. I woke them up crying and told them what I heard. After that night, I refused to walk past that part of the hallway alone. If I needed to use the bathroom at night, my grandma had to walk with me. Eventually, a few years passed and I moved in with my parents. I tried to forget about it, and for a while, I did, until one day I heard that my grandparents were moving out of the house. When they started clearing out the storage room, they discovered something strange underneath all the junk that had been piled up in there for years. There was a small hatch in the floor. My grandparents never opened it, they just left it alone. But when I heard that, I immediately thought back to the scratching I heard that night. And even now, I still wonder what could have been underneath that hatch trying to get out. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I understand why the grandparents didn't want to open the hatch, but I'm so curious to know what was underneath it. I wonder if there would be like evidence of someone living down there and actually scratching at the ceiling. If you have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will get to them if I can, and I will see you in the next one.
The road that eats children, story time. Now, I've shared several stories about this road before and how we all avoid it. So Jason was 26, his daddy owned a local funeral home, and Jason was the one who drove the hearse. Now, Jason's parents forbade him from driving on that highway. Him and his sister, they didn't want their kids anywhere near it. Let me just say, Jason was free. He didn't drink, smoke, nothing. So around 6:30 in the morning, Jason's daddy wakes him up and tells him he's got to go to the hospital and pick up a couple of bodies to bring back to their funeral home. Jason pulls up at the hospital, signs the papers, they load the bodies up, he gets in the hearse and he leaves. And Jason knew the rules. You don't make pit stops, you don't take detours, you don't stop off and see your girlfriend. No, you pick the bodies up, you bring them back. That's the rule. So Jason would have to drive about 20 minutes out of his way, taking the other route to avoid that road, and that's what he usually did up until this morning. So Jason pulls up to the other highway and it's blocked off. Road closed. They're doing construction work. He can't get through. So he's got to take this bad highway to get back home with those bodies. Jason said from the time those wheels hit the highway, he felt it. Everything around him began to shift and change. It's like how you feel before a thunderstorm hits. You know it's about to storm. Temperature dropped. The wind started blowing. His ears popped. Things felt weird. All of a sudden, the hair on his arms and neck stands up, and he gets the feeling like somebody's watching him, like they're right on his neck. He heard a woman's voice in his mind say, "Don't stop, keep driving." And he thought, where the hell did that come from? Like an intrusive thought or something. So Jason turns around and sees a woman with brown hair right behind him, and he damn near wrecked the car. He turns around and opens the curtain in the back of the car, but there's nobody there. And the two coffins are still lined up, closed. He hits the gas and starts driving again. When he gets about a mile up the road, he sees this woman in a red dress. And again, he hears that woman in his head say, "Don't stop." But he didn't want to leave this girl out there. She might be in trouble, so he did stop. Jason said, "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need a ride? I'm going into town." But the woman didn't say anything. She just kept walking. He's driving slow, following her with the car, and again he says, "Do you need help?" She stops, looks him in his eye and says, "I wonder who'll drive this car when it's you laying in the back." And that scared the hell out of him. Well, he decided at that point he wasn't going to give her a ride, so he took off. He gets over a mile down the road, looks in the rearview mirror and sees a red reflection following behind him, and it's catching up fast. By the time he looks back at the highway and back at the rearview mirror, this thing is right on the back of the car, and now he can see it. It's her. He watches her face as it changes from a beautiful woman into some type of demonic monster, pure nightmare fuel. He said her eyes were that big, jet black, bulging out of her face. She had no nose or ears. She was bald-headed, and there were sharp teeth protruding out of her mouth. Her arms were so long they were dragging past her feet, and she would throw them up and slap them on the back of the car. And every time she would slap the back of the car, it shook the entire vehicle. It felt like she was really strong, like she could do some damage. Well, he's nowhere near the end of this road. It's a very long road. He said he slung that hearse around so hard he could hear the caskets banging up against the wall in the back, and then he peed in his pants. Well, then she's just gone. So he slows the car down, and he's almost at the end of the road, and that's where he sees her. She's standing beside that old stop sign with her arms straight beside of her and her mouth hanging open. Then he sees a big white dog just standing in the middle of the highway. Jason said this is when all hell broke loose because this dog did not look right. This looked like a dog that had been stuffed, like taxidermy. Its eyes looked like marbles, the tongue looked fake, the hair was all brittle looking. The dog stood up on its hind legs, its head turned backwards. The woman and the dog walked up together and contorted their bodies. They were stuck together. And now there was a paw out here and an arm there and a high heel here. And then their heads split apart. Half was hers, half was the dog's, and they both had those big eyes and teeth. There was nowhere to go. Either you drive back onto that haunted highway or you go through these two monsters. He felt trapped. That was when he heard that same woman's voice in his head again telling him, "Get off the highway. Get off the highway now. Back up." As this thing approached the car, he stomped it backwards through the cornfield and got off of that road back onto the other main road. Once he got onto that road, everything shifted again. It was like the sun was back out, the temperature was warm. The craziest part was, when he got back to the funeral home, they unloaded the bodies, and one of them was a woman. During the funeral, her family put a DVD into the TV, showed a video of her singing "You Are My Sunshine" to one of her babies back when they were little. As soon as he heard her singing that voice, it was the same voice that he heard in the car telling him, "Don't stop." It was that woman whose body was in the hearse who was trying to protect him that day. He tells his dad that he needs a break from the funeral home because he thinks he's going crazy and what happened out there. And his dad said, "It ain't you, son. It's that damn road. It's cursed." His daddy, Mr. Milton, said that he had a very similar experience driving down that same highway 20 years ago, transporting bodies from the hospital back to the funeral home.
As somebody who lives in the Appalachian Mountains, I've gone camping here quite a few times, and I've never encountered something quite as horrifying as what's in tonight's story. So with that being said, grab your favorite tea and settle in, and let me tell you another scary Appalachia story, because of course, this is Tea After Midnight. This story comes from Anonymous. Hey Savannah, I've been really enjoying your Tea After Midnight stories lately, especially the ones about the Appalachian Mountains, because I live here too. Here is my scary Appalachian story if you would like to tell it on your page. I had just turned 18 and my mom and dad thought it would be a great idea for my family to go camping to celebrate mine and my younger brother's birthday. His birthday was just a few days after mine. My whole family really enjoys nature, so I was really excited to go. It was fall break this week, so my dad had planned for us to stay the entire week at a campground in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. We got to the spot and started setting up our area. It took us a while to set up the 2 tents and everything else that we had. One tent for my parents and younger siblings, and the other for my older brother, myself, and my younger brother. After we set everything up, we got ready to cook dinner and just hang out before bed. My older brother, myself, and my younger brother wanted to go on a walk before dinner, so we told our parents we would be back in a little while. My older brother was 19, I was 18, and my younger brother was 16 at the time, so my parents didn't have an issue with us going by ourselves. There was a 1-lane road leading around the entire campground, so we decided to follow this road and circle back around. It only takes about 30 to 45 minutes to walk the entire road to get back to where you started. As we were walking, we kept noticing that there were no cars or tents anywhere on the other campsites, which was very odd seeing that it was fall break, and every other time we had gone there on fall break, it was so packed you could barely find a spot to camp. Not really paying attention to it, we kept walking and just goofing off like we normally do. I noticed my older brother kept peering off into the woods around us, looking nervous and not saying much. I nudged him in the side with my elbow and said, "You're not scared, are you?" He looked at me and said, "No, I just have a feeling we're not alone." That instantly gave me chills because of all the horror stories we had heard growing up about the Appalachian Mountains. I looked over at my younger brother, and he didn't seem bothered by what my older brother said. We kept walking, and now I really started to pay attention to the woods and other campsites. It looked like a ghost town. No other cars or people, just silence. We were more than halfway done with the walk at this point, and it was starting to get really dark. None of us had brought a flashlight, so we started to pick up the pace to get back to our campsite. As we kept walking, we stopped dead in our tracks. Right in front of us on this road, there was what looked to be a person standing in the middle of the road. My older brother put his arm out in front of us to hold us back from walking any closer to them. He called out to the stranger and said, "Hey, do you have a campsite around here?" The person just stood there staring at us. They didn't answer him. My brother said, "We need to turn around and head back." But before we could turn around, the person started to sprint toward us in a very aggressive manner. My brother grabbed our hands and started bolting back towards the camp the way we came. I was trying to keep up with how fast he was running, but I kept hearing the person getting closer to us, and it was making me panic. I told my brother that the person was catching up, and my brother took mine and my younger brother's hand and dragged us into the woods to try to lose the person who was chasing us. As soon as we made it into the woods a little bit, I turned to look behind us to see if the person was following us, but they weren't. We stood behind a big tree for a few minutes to catch our breath. It was completely dark outside now, and the only light we had was coming from the moon. I had never been more terrified than I was in that moment. My older brother said, "I think they're gone, but we need to get back to camp now." We slowly walked back to the road and looked around us to see if we saw the person, but we didn't. We tried walking as quickly and as quietly as we possibly could down the road when we see headlights. My dad was pulling up to come find us because he was worried we had gotten lost. We all were so relieved to see him. We jumped in and told him how we saw this person standing in the road and that they just started to sprint at us and that the person looked very angry, so we had to bolt into the woods to lose them. Dad chalked it up to someone pulling a prank and that they were probably just trying to spook us. We had finally gotten back to camp and my brothers and I decided we were going to head to sleep. We didn't eat dinner or stay up and hang out. We just went right to bed because we were so freaked out. It took a while, but I finally fell asleep. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up to tapping on my back. It was my younger brother. I roll over to see what's going on, and I didn't see my older brother in the tent. It was just me and my younger brother, so I asked him where our brother went, and he said that he had heard something, so we went outside the tent to check it out and go get Dad. I told my brother to stay put, and I stepped out of the tent and called for my brother, but he didn't answer. My mom was outside of her tent and said that Dad had went to go find my brother because he came into their tent and told them that he heard a noise. But when my dad got up to check, my brother was gone. I asked my mom how long he had been gone, and she said about 10 minutes. We sat at the picnic table for about 5 minutes when we heard a blood-curdling scream. It didn't sound like it was human. I froze and looked at my mom, and she looked as petrified as I did. This scream didn't sound right. It sounded like what I can only describe as the most evil sounding scream I had ever heard. That's when I see my dad and brother come running out of the woods while my dad is yelling for us to grab our things and get in the truck. We grabbed what we needed and left everything else. My dad sped all the way out of that campground as my older brother was sitting in the back with this look of disbelief and terror on his face. I asked him what happened out there and he kept repeating, "I don't want to talk about it," and "just drop it." The next day when we were back at our house, I went into his room to talk to him about it, and what he told me still makes me shiver. He said that he kept hearing something walking around our tents, and it kept making this awful groaning noise. After a few minutes it had stopped. He said he ran to Dad's tent to go get him so they could check it out, and as he was telling Dad to come help him to check, he heard something behind him running away. When he turned to look behind him, he could see the person we encountered earlier on the road. My brother said that he ran after him because he didn't think it was funny to be coming over there to our camp trying to mess with us. So we ran after them to try to find out why they were doing this. My brother said he followed them into the woods a good ways when he saw the person on their knees hovering over what looked like a dead deer with its belly ripped open. My brother said this person was ripping the insides of the deer out from its carcass and eating it. And when he saw what they were doing, he gasped and the person turned his head towards my brother. My brother said that he had yellow glowing eyes and was covered in blood. That's when the thing screamed. My dad showed up right as my brother saw the yellow eyes and grabbed my brother's hand and they both ran back to camp. My dad told me later that day that he saw it too when he showed up to grab my brother, and that the person that was eating the deer definitely did have yellow eyes and that it definitely wasn't human. I'm not sure what that thing was, but I'm so glad we all made it out of there safely. I am 42 now, and I have never been camping ever again after that. My brother and dad were never really the same after what they saw. I still have many questions about that camping trip. Why were there no other people at that campground? Who or what was the person or thing that was eating the dead deer? And why was it walking around our tents, groaning in the middle of the night? So I don't know about you, but this story definitely gave me goosebumps. I also would like to know what you guys encountered because that is absolutely terrifying. Not only are they standing in the middle of the road, not answering your questions, but then to sprint towards you and you have to lose them in the woods, that's terrifying. But then to find out later that your brother heard the thing walking around the tent groaning in the middle of the night, it woke him up, so he goes to get your dad. Your dad comes out there, your brother sprinting off into the woods, but when he shows up, he sees the same thing your brother did. Let's talk about that. So when your brother shows up and finds this person, it's hovering over a dead deer, and it is eating the insides out of the carcass of this dead deer. That is absolutely vile. So if anybody watching this video knows what they encountered, please let us know because that is absolutely disgusting. I just want to say thank you so much for sending in your story. I am so sorry that you guys went through that, and I'm so happy that y'all are safe. That is absolutely horrifying. I couldn't imagine going through that, and I definitely won't be camping after I heard this story. But that does conclude this episode of Tea After Midnight. If you have any personal scary stories you want to share, I would love to read them. You can email me at the email on the screen or the email in the caption of this video. As always, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I love y'all so much. I hope you have the best night, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
This is the terrifying moment this stalker got up the ladder to her flat with a knife. It was the 25th of May 2023 in Orrefors in Sweden. I'm going to call the woman in this case Jane because she's kept anonymous in a lot of the news articles about this. So Jane had been dating this guy, 26-year-old Mohammed Amana from Algeria. But for reasons that are probably going to become quite obvious in this case, she had broken up with him. She just wasn't happy in the relationship and she said, nah, I'm out. But he was hounding her. He would not give up. He'd be calling her, texting her, begging, trying to follow her, harassing her with message after message. It was terrifying. In the end, she started seeing a new guy and went to stay with him, partly actually for her own safety, because she didn't want to be left alone. She didn't know what her ex was going to try and do. She hoped that staying with a friend meant that she couldn't be tracked down by this crazy guy. She was very, very wrong. After stalking her, he figured out where she was staying and armed himself with a kitchen knife. Somehow he got a huge ladder and decided to scale it to get access to the balcony of the building. Now, Jane and her new guy were at home at the time and were absolutely horrified when they started seeing all of this unfold. It was like it happened super fast. It was all going in like fast forward, but it also felt like it was happening in slow motion. Jane saw her ex approaching and ran into the bathroom and barricaded herself inside. But Mohammed had another target. After reaching the top, he smashed the balcony door with a rock and slashed at Jane's friend. He was shouting, "I will kill you." Shockingly, there were several witnesses that saw this happen, and I know that in the moment it could have been scary, but like, he's at the top of the ladder, you're at the bottom. Surely somebody could have like threatened to pull the ladder or just pushed it a little bit. Thank God emergency services were en route and arrested him before he could kill either of them. The friend was raced to hospital and thankfully did survive the brutal attack. Despite all of this being caught on camera and the fact that he was stalking this girl prior to this and making threats to kill, he was given a measly 2 years in prison. Now, some people have said online that they would have thrown boiling water out of the window, but personally my kettle takes absolutely bloody ages to boil. I just feel like maybe even grabbing some water and throwing it out of the window could have like thrown him off balance, but I guess hindsight is a great thing.
Let's read some creepy camping wilderness stories. These are my favorite. I was doing a quick solo overnighter in West Virginia with my dog in the late fall to test out some new gear. The section of the trail was off the beaten path and had no real overlooks, water points, scenic areas, shelters, etc. I was about 10 miles from the closest trailhead, just flat woods and a rarely traveled trail. As it got dark, I moved about 300 yards off trail and found a small cliff face. I walked around it and set up camp in a draw, completely out of sight of the trail. The sun sets. It's been dark for a few hours. I have a very small fire going and am reading quietly while my dog is snoozing. Suddenly, my dog becomes alert and stares up at the top of a cliff. A minute goes by and he stands up and starts growling softly. I get out of my hammock and shine a light at the top of the cliff. There is some middle-aged dude just standing there wearing a camo army poncho with the hood up. It wasn't raining and it wasn't going to. He was just staring at me. I said hi and asked if everything was okay. He didn't say a word, just stared at me for another 15 seconds, then turned around and walked out of sight. Never saw him again. Okay, y'all, wait, I have a personal scary story that is kind of similar to this, but it's more like paranormal, I think. I was gonna wait to have my boyfriend tell this story like on a podcast or something, and maybe I still will. But I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all right now because it kind of makes sense with this story. Okay, anyway. So my boyfriend was telling me, he was like, I have like this scary memory that I don't know if it's real or not. We all have those, and those are so confusing. But he said whenever he was younger, he was camping with his grandparents somewhere in the desert, maybe Arizona. I'm pretty sure it was Arizona. And he said they were sitting like at the bottom of a cliff, just like this person was. That was like where their campsite was. And he said that they looked to the top of the cliff and there was like something that looked like a man standing at the top of this cliff, just being weird, standing there. And they said like hello to him, no response. Anyway, I guess his grandparents just kind of fucked it off, whatever, like don't care. But my boyfriend was still staring at this person, this thing. And he says while he was staring at it, it flew away. Yep, that sounds like a real life Jeepers Creepers. My jaw was literally on the floor. And he says that his grandparents don't talk about it. And that makes me believe that something happened, okay? Anyway, let's get into the next story. Southern Indiana had a friend drop me off at the trailhead just after dark. A crappy old truck was behind us, and they slowed down as I was getting my gear out. There were no suitable trees in the campsite, so I set up my hammock about 75 feet away. In the middle of the night, I was awoken by a commotion and headlights shining into my campsite. I heard multiple people milling around and heard them saying, "I thought you said someone got dropped off here." And He must have hiked off in the dark. I was never so glad to be stealth camping in my life. Starting off an easy overnighter in the Olympics, arrived at the trailhead around 2 p.m. on a Thursday. Upon arrival, there was one other vehicle in the small parking area, a beat-up old full-size van. Didn't think anything of it, one way or another. Began the hike, and within the first quarter mile or so, I passed a woman returning toward the trailhead, wearing an empty baby front pack carry thing. I did not pass any other people on the trail or see any evidence of a baby. I've spent a good amount of time solo backpacking in the actual wilderness. I've also done a lot of car camping in desolate places, and I've only ever been scared or had something weird happen once. I was set up just off of a Forest Service road in Washington. I had been there for several hours, and everything seemed fine. I was sitting next to the fire, enjoying the cold, late fall night air. Then it was like a switch had been flipped. I was overcome with terror and dread. Everything changed. I felt almost paralyzed with fear. I jumped into the rig, locked up, and laid in bed all night. I just listened and waited. I would have just driven off, but this truck setup had a master switch on the truck battery, and I had turned it off when I arrived. To leave meant that I would have to go back outside, and there was no way I was going to do that. I felt like a kid laying in bed, scared of something coming out of the closet. I laid there like that all night, and nothing happened. I got the fuck out in the morning. I never heard or saw anything directly, but I knew something wasn't right. I haven't experienced anything like that before or after. Hell, I've seen a wolf 20 yards away from my tent before and slept like a baby that night. Nothing has ever affected me like that night in Washington. Humans are animals, and we have instincts to protect us. Something was definitely watching them that night. Southern Florida on native land, or what used to be, heard stories from a friend who had stayed in the woods a few times there, but they sounded ridiculous. It's midnight, pitch black. I'm lurking around as the fire is out, making sure all my gear is with me before I sleep. And I notice a tree's odd shape about 10 feet from me. The only reason I could see the outline or shape of the tree at all was because of the moonlit dirt path just behind it. It looks as if there's someone or something standing behind the tree, peering around from behind it. I can make out the shape of a head and shoulders, so I take one long step to my right to further expose what is behind the tree to me. And as I do, the thing or person standing behind the tree takes one step in the opposite direction to keep themselves mostly concealed. But they didn't make a stepping motion. It's almost like they floated, or gilded. It was such a smooth motion. I took one more step to make sure what I was seeing wasn't a trick, and once again, I could see the silhouette of this thing up against the dirt path move further behind the tree as to keep itself hidden. If that dirt path wasn't there, I wouldn't have noticed whatever it was watching us. I knelt down and slapped my friend awake, saying there's something watching us from behind the tree, and I booked it faster than I ever ran before until I got to the forest's edge, where there was some civilization, running straight through all of the bushes and spider webs I avoided on my way in. Florida, huh? I need to research more scary stories from Florida because this sounds absolutely terrifying and I need to know more.
A harrowing true crime case mixed with the paranormal. Just throwing it out there. The woman next door. A few years ago, I found a cheap rental house in a really nice neighborhood for myself and my daughter. The rent was somehow the same price as my apartment, and I was excited because it meant we finally had a yard, a garage, and getting my daughter into a better school district. The first time I saw the house, it was awful. You could smell cigarettes from the street before we even walked inside. The lawn was completely overgrown, the garage was packed with junk, and there was still furniture everywhere from whoever lived there before me. The landlord owned both that house and the house directly next door. Most people would have walked away, but I'm pretty handy and figured I could fix this up. For an entire week, I scrubbed walls, painted, cleaned trash out of the yard, and slowly brought the place back to life. Even neighbors walking by started complimenting how much better it looked. But no matter what I did, it never felt like home. I constantly felt stressed there, aggravated, uncomfortable. I kept rearranging furniture, repainting rooms, trying to make it feel warm, but something always felt off. The house also directly faced a funeral home, which definitely did not help. Sometimes neighbors would casually mention weird stories about the man who had lived there before me, but I never paid much attention. The previous owner's mail kept arriving constantly. For almost the entire first year, an Ipsy makeup subscription bag showed up every month addressed to a woman I'd never even met. Honestly, even though it sounds bad, it became kind of funny, like a little surprise every month. After about a year, I became close friends with the woman living next door in the other rental house owned by the same landlord. I spent a lot of time there because her house felt completely different, peaceful, calm. When she decided to move away, I ended up renting that house instead. I know it sounds ridiculous to move literally next door, but the energy felt completely different. I don't think that sounds ridiculous. Honestly, with all the things that I've read on here, girl, you do you. Things were calmer there, but strange things started happening. Objects would disappear and then reappear in obvious places. I'd hear footsteps upstairs. Sometimes I'd hear movement in the hallway when nobody else was home. But the strangest thing was the woman. I would wake up in the middle of the night and see a woman standing in my bedroom doorway or peeking around the corner, watching me. At first, I convinced myself it was shadows or light tricks, but it kept happening. Oddly enough, I was never terrified. The feeling wasn't evil or threatening. The only way I can describe it is that it felt like when your mom quietly checks on you at night to make sure you're safe and still in bed, like someone watching over the house. Around the same time, my landlord became increasingly unstable. She would call in the middle of the night, show up unannounced, threaten rent increases over maintenance requests, and constantly create chaos between tenants. By the end of my lease, I was desperate to leave. During my yard sale before moving out, a man stopped by and started talking to me about the guy who used to live next door. He told me they had once been best friends, but things changed after the man married a woman from next door. According to him, the relationship was toxic and abusive. Then he casually mentioned something that made my stomach drop. The woman he married had originally lived in the very house I was moving out of. She had sold her house and moved in with him next door. After the yard sale, I started digging online because I wanted to know what happened to them. That's when I found out why the house had still been full of furniture when I first moved in, why everything had been abandoned exactly as it was, why nobody ever came back. The man had gone to prison because he murdered her. He beat her to death and left her there for days before calling for help, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The Ipsy bags arriving every month were hers. It hadn't even been a full year since her death when I moved into that house, and somehow I had ended up living in both houses, just like she once had. To this day, I still think about the woman I kept seeing standing in the hallway. And honestly, I don't think she was trying to scare me at all. I think she was just checking on us. I lived in the blue house on the right first, and then moved right next door to the 2-story on the left. I'm going to insert a picture right here of the house because she did post that. However, she did send a couple of other attachments. I'm going to exclude the names, but we're going to read them really quick. One of them is a GoFundMe. It says, "I am so sorry that this happened to you. No one deserves to be hurt by the ones that they love. This monster not only hurt her, who knows how many times. He ended up taking her life, leaving her unrecognizable. That devil got out of jail August 2nd, stayed 6 months for his third domestic, got off parole for time served, and killed her before September. This is truly the unthinkable and has my BFF's world upside down. If anyone can help with donating the smallest amount to help with cremation costs, it would be truly appreciated." That was the description on the GoFundMe, which is absolutely heart-wrenching. This, however, is the press release. Richfield Township Department of Public Safety. Press release update. Suspect charged on open murder. 8/19/2024, at approximately 15:17 hours, August 18, 2024, Richfield Township public safety officers responded to a residence in Richfield Township to investigate a suspicious situation. When officers arrived, they found a 64-year-old woman lying on the floor in her residence, badly injured with obvious signs of death. The scene was secured and the Michigan State Police Forensic Lab was activated. An investigation into the death was initiated with the result of the investigation leading to the arrest of blank. They did ask me to leave all names out, so I'm doing that now. A 62-year-old male was lodged at the Roscommon County Jail without further incident. Richfield Township public safety officers and detectives from Roscommon County Sheriff's Department continue to work tirelessly on this investigation. The Roscommon County Prosecutor's Office has issued charges against blank. Today in the 82nd District Court, blank was arraigned for open murder, felony tampering with evidence, and domestic violence in the third offense. He remains in custody of the Roscommon County Jail on a $1 million bond. As always, criminal defendants are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Stories like this fucking piss me off. They piss me off. And it's not that the OP pisses me off. It's that the context of the story pisses me off. Because why the fuck did it take 3 times of committing domestic violence for this offender to be arrested and charged? Thank you so much for sending this in. I did obviously read your note in the beginning. I made sure to leave everyone's name out, and I absolutely will not mention your name. I think that for one thing, she probably just didn't want to leave the house that she had lived in. I mean, it sounds like she had lived there for an extended period of time. And her choice in leaving that house and going to live next door with this man was obviously detrimental because she didn't make it through. As I said in the beginning, stories like this piss me off, and it's not that I don't feel heartbroken, because I do, but I feel more anger and rage than I do anything else, because as it's stated several times, especially in the GoFundMe, that she had been abused several times by this man. They had arrested him several times, but they continued to let him go. This shit is insane, okay? There should not be an ability to have a second time. There should not be an ability to have a third time. Am I glad that this man is going to prison for the rest of his life? Sure. But we lost a life in order to get there. And that is not how it should be. To say that our justice system is flawed is a goddamn understatement. And you guys know if you have been watching me for a long time, that this specific subject is near and dear to my heart. There are a lot of subjects that are near and dear to my heart, but this one holds a very special place because of my own previous history and my family's own previous history. I can count on more than 2 hands the amount of women that I know who have experienced domestic violence at the hands of a man specifically, and nothing was done about it, whether they called the police or not. And this is just so disturbing. I can only imagine the pain that she felt, not only in her death, but in life, knowing that she loved this person so much, she was willing to give her life for them. And that is truly the most horrific thing that could happen to someone. My opinion, don't fucking come for her. I think she just wanted you guys to be safe. I don't think that she wanted the same thing to happen. And like you said, it was like a mother watching over her children. And I love that for her. I really do. I hope that she was kind of set free for the fact that you were able to leave the house and do that safely. Thank you again for sending this in, and I love you guys. I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.
The following story scares me because it's like, what do you mean don't respond to a voice that you don't recognize? Like, I feel like it's second nature to respond when you hear someone call your name. Or if you're like me, you're gonna and what the fuck out of somebody that's calling you. Sometimes when I'm on the verge of like awake and asleep, I tend to hear my mom's voice say Lati, and it like jolts me. Does anybody have an explanation for that, or am I just fucking crazy? So this girl says that growing up, her entire family have always been skeptic. They didn't believe in the paranormal. Now, they did go to church, and they would always have like priests come to their house and bless it and things like that. She also says that her mom had like a cleansing friend that would come to the house and also cleanse it, but like, wouldn't that be paranormal, or am I crazy? Am I dumb? I'm not I don't know much about the topic, but that doesn't sound like it's not paranormal. Anyway, I'm so off topic. Let me continue with the story. So this girl says that she would ask her mom why she would have those kind of rituals where her friend would come over and cleanse the house, but her mom would ignore her and just basically never give her a straight answer about the topic. Okay, makes sense now. She says that her dad was a truck driver, so most nights he would not be home. If anything, he would be home like 1 or 2 days a week. At the time, her mom also suffered from insomnia, so most nights she would actually accompany her mom so that she didn't feel lonely, or sometimes she would just stay up herself and wouldn't be in the same room as her, but she just just wanted her mom to feel comfort knowing that somebody else was awake with her. So there was one night where she didn't stay up with her mom and she ended up going to sleep, but she was awoken by someone calling out her name. She said that it didn't sound evil, it sounded very maternal. So after somebody called her name, she then said that she felt really soft hands touching her face, but the only thing was that the hands were really cold. She said that these hands touching her face were very delicate. They weren't trying to harm her, but she felt how cold they were on her face. Eventually, she did fall back to sleep, but then she got jolted awake because she heard her name being screamed out from the first floor of the house. She opened the door to her bedroom and she started walking towards the hallway where the stairs were going to lead down to the first floor. So as she's walking closer and closer to where she can take the steps down, she was listening to where the TV was on, but it almost sounded like somebody was switching the channels. She tried to rush because she thought that maybe her mom was down there and she had called her and she really needed her for something. When she gets to the third step trying to go down the stairs, she realizes that it's dark down there. The TV was not on and she couldn't see anything. In that moment, she got really scared, so she decided to go back up the stairs to go back into her bedroom. However, the moment where she turns around and she's about to go up the stairs again, she realizes that the TV in the living room turned on. She turned to look into the living room and that is where she sees it. There is a little boy sitting on the couch looking up at her and smiling at her. Mind you, she has never seen this little boy ever in life. She said that she doesn't know how she did it because in that moment she was so scared she felt like she was paralyzed, but somehow she was able to run into her bedroom, get underneath the covers, and she just started praying. She couldn't tell anybody what happened. She didn't know how to tell anybody what had happened, but the following morning the dad was already gonna go back to work, and as her and her mom and her sibling were saying goodbye to the dad by the front door, all three of them heard a voice from inside the house that they had never heard before. The voice was of a little kid and it said, "Mom, Mom, please come." The mom actually made the mistake of responding to the voice, and not just that, but walking towards where they heard it. She said that they all knew that you shouldn't respond to a voice that you don't recognize, that they had been told this a lot, and I guess the mom made that mistake because when she went to respond to it, she doesn't know what she told it, but all they saw was a silhouette of a little boy, almost like a shadow figure, running out of there, and all three of them saw this. Ever since then, things that they cannot explain is happening in that house, and they're seeing this kid more and more, almost like it's manifesting itself more now. But remember that the mom had this cleanser friend, and they had her over, and the lady basically told them that this little boy was not here. It was brought by their dad. I guess somewhere where the dad was truck driving, this little boy got attached to the dad and is now inside of the house with them. They have no idea when or how this could have happened. They also don't know if maybe one day this will end. Hopefully it does, but they have no idea.
I have a scary story for you today that comes to us from someone who lives on a rural property. And at the time that this story takes place, she said that she was actually staying in the home by herself because her husband was traveling for work. But she wasn't alone. She did have her 2 dogs with her. I also realized when I started recording this video that I never finished my makeup this morning. There were other things that I wanted to do and I just walked away. I didn't blend. I didn't put mascara on, nothing. Today is a severely ADHD day, so this is not intentional. Anyway, this person who we're just going to call Carmen, she said that she lived rural. She didn't live on a farm. They did have some property. She said about 3 acres. They lived in a smaller house, a smaller cabin type house. There were woods that did line the back of their property. They had a backyard that was fenced in. She said it wasn't a privacy fence. It was basically like one of those fences, like a horse fence. But then they had put wire up along that fence to make sure that nothing could really get in or get out. Her husband did travel for work, so she was at the house often by herself. She said that she never felt anything threatening, any sense of impending doom. She always felt very safe where she was. Even though where she lived was rural, she said she did have neighbors that were not too far down the road. So she never felt completely secluded, and she also had her 2 big dogs that always stayed with her when her husband traveled. The day that this story takes place, Carmen said that she had stayed home the entire day. She didn't go anywhere. She didn't see anyone because she actually really wasn't feeling well. She told me that normally before bed at about 9:30, she would let her dogs out into their fenced-in backyard to use the bathroom. However, this night she decides, I'm going to go to bed early. I'm going to let them out at about like 8:45, and then I'm just going to go on ahead and head to bed because I'm really not feeling well. She opens the door that goes to the backyard, and immediately her 2 big dogs, they start growling and barking, and they immediately take off and beeline it for the corner of the fence in her backyard. Carmen said at this point she is ready for bed. She has plugged her phone in on her nightstand. She is in her jammies. She really doesn't want to deal with this right now. She's thinking there's just an animal out there in the woods along the fence line, and my dogs are reacting to that. So they do keep a flashlight by the back door. So Carmen grabs that flashlight, she flicks it on, and she starts shining it around the yard. She doesn't see anything, but her dogs will not leave this corner of the fence. They're just standing there barking, snarling, growling. She said this is really not like them. They do not do this. So she's thinking, there's an animal, it must be hurt, it must be stuck, something is wrong. So she has her little slippers on, she walks outside in her little jammy jams, and as she gets closer to the corner of this fence, she says that she can see something that looks like a black trash bag laying on the outside of her fence, just where the woods kind of meet her property line. She said it was not far, maybe like 3 feet. So she sees this and she's thinking, okay, my dogs are seeing this. It looks like maybe somebody dumped some trash. It's not normal. I don't really know how that got there, but that's weird. But this is what my dogs are reacting to. So she kind of walks out there to tell them that it's okay. And she is still shining her flashlight on this trash bag so that she can show her dogs, like, look, like it's just an inanimate object. Like it's completely fine. As she gets closer, she says that she realizes that this trash bag is actually moving. And as she gets even closer, she says, I realize this is not a trash bag because I see a man's hand. Carmen says that this does startle her. She's afraid. She realizes, oh, this is an actual person that is laying outside of my fence. That's very strange. But Carmen also said, I have the survival skills of a ripened avocado. She says she just stops where she is. She keeps shining her flashlight and she actually asks this person, hey, are you okay? If you are on the edge of your seat screaming at Carmen, me too. So it's fine. She recognizes this. She asks this person, hey, are you okay? And she says that this person slowly stands up. And she said it doesn't even look like a normal stand up. It's basically like he unfolds from this weird little pretzel that he was laying in, hoping that she wouldn't see him. Once he stands up, Carmen says she realizes that this man is perfectly fine. And she says that's when it hits her. Her dogs are still snarling and barking and very upset. And Carmen realizes I should probably be afraid. Now, Carmen has left her cell phone inside charging on the nightstand because remember, she was getting ready to go to bed. So she doesn't have her phone. But she knows that this guy doesn't know that she doesn't have her phone. All Carmen has right now is this flashlight and her 2 big dogs. This man is standing on the other side of the fence about 10 feet away from Carmen. She slowly starts to back up. She grabs her dog's collar and slowly starts to go back to the house. She said, I'm not turning my back on this guy. I just tell him, hey, I don't know what you're doing here, but you're trespassing. You need to leave. Man looks at her and says, no. Carmen says, okay, well then I'm going to call the cops. And he says, don't do that. Girl! This man starts to approach the fence, kind of hang his arms over the fence, and then her dogs start to go ballistic. She says her dogs are not trained in any sort of like protection or anything like that, but in that moment, she knows that her dogs would have protected her, would have hurt this person. So she says, I know it was a lie, but I end up telling this guy, my dogs are highly trained, and if I give them the cue, they will come after you. Do not come into this yard. So the guy does not go over the fence because these dogs are still going crazy. So she's slowly backing into the house. She does not turn her back on this man. She gets inside, gets both of her dogs inside, locks the doors that lead to the back, makes sure that the front is locked, with still keeping an eye on the back doors. Like I said, it was a small cabin type house, an open layout, so she could see all the entrances. She gets to the bedroom. She grabs her cell phone, immediately calls authorities. Authorities say, like, we're 15 minutes out. We'll be there in 15 minutes. But Carmen's neighbor is actually a local sheriff. So while she is on the phone with 911, she texts her neighbor and lets him know that someone is trespassing on her property and she feels threatened. He says it doesn't take 35 seconds and this man is pulling into her drive with his patrol car. Lights are on, sirens are going, hoping that he can just scare this guy off if he is trying to enter the home. So her neighbor, who's the sheriff, he jumps out of his car. He runs up to the house and he's like, where is he? And she tells him he was on the back corner of that fence. Carmen says that her neighbor immediately takes off, running towards that back corner of her property. He kind of stops at the corner of the fence, looks around, doesn't see anything, but kind of jerks his head towards the woods as if he hears something. So he immediately just takes off running into the trees. Carmen says that the responding officers to her call into 911 must have been traveling at light speed because they get there about 7 minutes later. They hop out of their car. They see the other sheriff car in the driveway. They're asking kind of what's going on. And she says, my neighbor just took off chasing something into the woods. So they then take off and follow into the woods. About 5 minutes later, the 4 of them come walking out of the tree line. So the 2 on-duty officers and her 1 neighbor who was off duty have subdued this guy. He's cuffed and they're just kind of walking him towards their patrol cars. And says she does notice that her neighbor who she had texted is carrying some type of a book bag. Carmen says she does not want to have any other interaction with this guy who was standing at the corner of her fence, so she's not going near the patrol cars, but one officer does stay with him. They have him in the back, and then her neighbor and the officer come up to her house to talk to her. Her neighbor tells her that in this book bag, they had found certain things that could inflict things, and also a notebook with notes about Carmen's schedule. Where she went, when she let her dogs out, when she normally went to bed, when her husband normally traveled. This guy who was on the outside of Carmen's fence had plans. He had apparently told the officers as well as Carmen's neighbor that the only reason that he did not follow through with whatever he had planned was because her schedule was off and her dogs. Carmen said that this is still very fresh. This guy is currently incarcerated. However, since he didn't actually do anything and they can't prove what his intent was, he will soon be out. Since this incident, Carmen says that her husband has requested to stop traveling for work, so he is no longer leaving her alone at the home because of what happened. They also have put up a security system as well as security cameras and fenced in their entire property line, even into the woods. She says she knows that this probably won't deter him if he does want to come back as far as the fencing, but it gives her peace of mind. They also on this fence have mounted cameras so they can see if anyone does come onto their property. Carmen says it's a very unfortunate incident because in a place that she had always felt safe, she no longer felt safe. She said it seemed like a safe area. We were rural. We weren't, around a bunch of people who could find you or see you. And we trust all of our neighbors. And it has always seemed like a safe place. But she says now that security is completely shattered. In telling this story, Carmen hopes that she can bring awareness to other women to always be aware of your surroundings. Even if you are somewhere that you think that you are safe, always have your cell phone on you, always have some sort of protection on hand, even if it's your own backyard, especially if you are alone and by yourself. I'm not really sure how the legal system works or operates in situations like this. I don't know what this man could have or would have been charged with. I'm not sure, and Carmen did not elaborate. She just let us know that he is incarcerated and did get time for this. However, I don't know what his exact charges were. There are so many stories that I can tell you, and when I tell them, I don't feel fear from them. I more so feel fascination and a want to understand. However, when it comes to sharing stories like this, these are the ones that scare me because honestly, there is nothing scarier in this world than human beings. But I hope that everyone has a really great day. I'm really sorry about my makeup, especially my eyeshadow. I didn't blend it. I don't know. Some days I just have really bad ADHD, and today is one of those days. And I don't even know. I don't know. Girl, I don't know. Okay, bye.
I got an email from a girl who said that when she was younger, she went to school and came home and her mom had rearranged her room and she put two mirrors facing each other. And what transpired because of this after this is absolutely horrifying. Now, to give you a little bit of backstory, when Zara was 12 years old, she was in love with anything horror, paranormal, and she'd also see things. And her parents knew this about her. Her entire family did. Zara said that her grandmother also had a very interesting gift. Anytime something bad was about to happen, her grandmother would get this gut feeling, and then she would get this smell that she didn't explain what it was, but her grandmother would smell things before something bad was about to happen. She did say that before this experience that I'm about to tell you about, nothing harmful had ever happened to her. She had experienced things that were kind of scary, pretty terrifying, but nothing harmful until this incident. Now, she did say that there was one incident where she was sleeping in her room at her grandparents' house and she had these puppets that were above her grandmother's door. And one night she's sleeping in bed and she wakes up in the middle of the night and she looks up at where the puppets are and the puppets are dancing and moving around. And that was the scariest thing that ever happened to her before this incident. Now, fast forward to the incident. It's important to note that her room was set up with her bed next to her window. And her closet, which had a mirror facing the window, which is also important to know. So one day, Zara comes home from school and she walks into her room and she notices that her mom had cleaned her room and she had moved a few things around. But the first thing that she notices is that her mom had put a mirror facing the closet. And remember, there was a mirror already in the closet. So immediately when she sees this, she moves the mirror because she's like, okay, I know that this is not good. This can open up a portal. I want nothing to do with this. So she moves the mirror. She's like, okay, I'm good. Nothing's going to happen. It was only up for a couple of hours. It'll be fine. She absolutely could not have been more wrong. 2 weeks later, Zara is in her room and she's just laying in her bed when she sees something out of the corner of her eye. She looks over and there's something in the mirror in her closet. There was this woman with black hair, pale skin, and hollowed out eyes. She said that there was something black like mascara running down her face, and that she had this white cut up shirt on, and she was literally looking at her like this. She showed me a picture of what this thing looked like. I can't show it to you guys because I'm pretty sure I'll get in trouble for that. But if you guys have ever seen The Grudge, it looks exactly like the woman from The Grudge. So horrifying. She said the thing that scared her the most about this was not even the way that it looked. It was the aura that she was giving off. It was like a mixture of sadness and anger. So she tells her mom about this because she's obviously terrified. And her mom just simply tells her, it's not doing anything to you. Just ignore it. It's just trying to scare you. That night she goes to bed and she's laying in bed and she's obviously freaked out when she notices something on the mirror. These handprints start to form on her bedroom mirror. And she keeps on looking, and this woman starts coming out of the mirror. And the thing was, is she was coming closer and closer to her, but she wasn't coming closer and closer to her with her entire body. She was coming closer and closer to her with her head only. Her neck was extending, and she had that screaming look on her face. It almost looked like she was screaming at Zara, but just no sound was coming out. Now, Zara said that at this point, she just started to close her eyes because she was so scared, but she could literally feel this thing getting closer to her. So she ends up opening her eyes again because she just can't help it. And she notices that this thing is crawling out of the mirror now. She said that her arms and her legs were so thin and tiny, and her neck was so long that it almost looked like her arms and legs wouldn't be able to hold up her body. It didn't seem natural. Zara said that this went on for 2 weeks with this woman just getting closer and closer to her. At this point, she is now crawling closer to her, and she's closing her eyes each time this is happening. But the thing is that it got to a point where she eventually was able to feel this woman's breath on her forehead. Or in some cases, Zara would be turned around, like facing the other way, and she could feel her like breath on her neck. At this point, Zara is not sleeping because she is so terrified that this woman is actually going to get close enough to her where she's going to like climb on top of her or do something. So she's not sleeping whatsoever. Then things escalated to where whatever this thing was making things fly off of Zara's shelves. She said that perfume bottles would straight up fly off the shelf and like smash against her wall. Here's a picture of what happened. Like, that's a perfume stain right there apparently. And she said that shoes would fly off the shelves and also smash into the wall, and that her mom was so sick of this happening that the reason why there is like blue sticky stuff around the windowsill right there is because her mom put that there because so many fragile things were breaking and smashing against the wall, and that is still there to this day. Well, after about week 3 of this happening, she has had enough and she won't go into the room anymore. She actually starts sleeping with her mother. The only time she goes into that room is during the day or when the lights are on, and it's like to go get her clothes to change for school. Eventually her mom kind of gets sick of this. Her mom is like, okay, something is going on here. This is not good. Whatever this is now getting, it's throwing stuff against the wall. So she actually calls a specialist. And as soon as she tells this specialist what is happening, the specialist is like, I'm coming over right now. This is not good. So this specialist comes, right? And he actually ends up getting rid of this spirit. She doesn't see this spirit anymore. So they think everything's fine in the house. A couple weeks passed, about 7 weeks, she said, passed. Everything was good until one night it wasn't. And in my opinion, something more terrifying happened. One night, Zara goes to bed. She wakes up in the middle of the night. She's not really sure what woke her up. She looks over because she sees something standing by her window. And what she sees was horrifying. There's this woman, probably about 8 feet tall. She said that this woman was taller than her ceiling. The woman was wearing white. She had super thin legs and super thin arms, and her head was cocked at a 90-degree angle, and her face, her cheeks were up against the ceiling because that's how tall she was. Now, she wasn't even looking at Zara. She was just standing there, staring out the window with her head cocked like this. Zara actually said that this happened for a couple more weeks where she would wake up in the middle of the night and she would see this thing, and that her grandmother would get that smell because she would ask her grandmother, like, do you smell anything before this stuff is happening? This stuff is happening to me. You have to be smelling things because these things are not good. And her grandmother would validate her by telling her that she was in fact smelling things. Zara said that these 2 experiences are the scariest things that have ever happened to her in her entire life, and that she does not wish this upon anybody. And she wants to know what you guys think of this story. Apparently she has tried to tell it on her own page before, and she got a lot of hate for it for some reason. But I think this story is absolutely terrifying. I wish it had a little more detail. I do like when stories have more detail. This kind of just listed off a bunch of instances instead of going into like what happened before, during, and after. I would prefer stories to be sent to me in that way, but the story was still good and I still wanted to tell it because it is terrifying, and she deserves for her story to be told. And Zara, I'm sure you're going to be watching this. Don't worry, I get a lot of stories where there's not enough detail for me to tell. I am actually going to make another video about that so that you guys know how to send in stories that I can actually tell. But tell me what you guys think of the story. What exactly do you think this was? What do you think this woman wanted? Do you think that she was bad, or do you think she was sad, or do you think that maybe something happened to her in that house? What about the other woman? That's so strange to me. He gets rid of the first woman and then this woman comes. Do you think it was the same woman? I have so many questions. Drop all your thoughts, opinions, suggestions down below though. Please be respectful as always. And right now I'm going to do my favorite part, which is the shout outs. Fairies and moon rises. Thank you so much for the comment that you left the other day. You said that you anxiously wait for my stories, and I love that so much. That means so much to me. Thank you for telling me that. Thank you so much for being a part of my community and for being kind and leaving comments like that. I'm so glad that you like my stories that much. That just, you have no idea. You guys say the nicest things, and it gets me so excited, and it makes my day so much better. So I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. I love you, girl. XX Maria XX825. Thank you so much for the comment that you left. You said that you make a cup of tea and then you listen to my stories every night before you go to bed. That is so cute. Thank you so much. I love that you do that. I make peanut butter and jelly, and then I eat ice cream and listen to scary stories. It's so bad for me, but I don't care. It's like the only time that I have at night that I actually look forward to and enjoy. So I'm so glad that I get to be that for you. That makes me so happy. You're the best. Thank you so much for being a part of my community. Thank you for your comment. I hope you know how much I appreciate you, girly. I love you. And with that being said, my name is Kaisa, and I tell your paranormal experiences on here, or ones that you recommend to me every single night. So if you're into that, hit that follow button. And I just need you to do 3 things for me. And what are those? Keep sending me your scary stories. Have a safe night. And what's the third one? Say it with me. Have a spooky night. Love you guys so much, my spooky babies. I'll see you in the next one. Spooky kisses and haunted hugs.
So apparently this recently happened in Guerrero, Mexico. So for context, this guy says that he lives in a neighborhood called Cazahuates, which is like in the edge of Guerrero, Mexico. In order to get back home, his only options are to get a taxi or a combi. And if you don't know what a combi is, it's basically like somebody's van that they converted into kind of like a bus situation where people pay a lot less but they get a ride. Sometimes it's really packed and you're like right next to somebody in there, but it's a lot cheaper than getting a taxi. So he ends up having a work event on Tuesday that happened in the center of town, and it went past the time that they said it was going to end, so he ended up leaving there around 10 p.m. Because he doesn't want to pay for a taxi, he ends up walking to this park where he knows it's the base where all the combis are parked at. He wanted to check and see if the combi that takes him to his actual town was there, but it wasn't. There was another one that got him at least close to where he needed to be. He was also crossing his fingers because sometimes some of these men that work on these combis live where he lives, so when they drop everybody off, they still end up going towards his town. He was crossing his fingers that was one of the guys and maybe he could still give him a ride home. At the end of the ride, he realized that it wasn't one of the guys that lives in his hometowns, and he unfortunately had to walk from whatever town he was all the way to where he lives. Unfortunately, the road that leads to where his neighborhood is completely alone. There's no houses and there's also no street lights, so he ended up taking his phone out with the flashlight so he can make his way back home. When he was halfway through the walk, he could tell that there was somebody actually coming his way, so eventually he was gonna run into whoever the person was that was walking away from town. At first, he was kind of excited to see that he wasn't alone on that road, but then in the same note, he got a little bit scared that somebody might rob him, or what if it was like a crazy person? That's exactly what he was thinking about when he realized that the guy was close enough to where he could distinguish his facial features and everything like that. And in that instant is where he got really fucking scared. So the story is in Spanish, and the guy explains the person that he's seen looks to be 2.5 meters tall, which is like a little over 8 feet tall. And the reason that he made that observation was because there was only one house at the edge of his hometown, and that house is abandoned. And the reason why he thinks that it's 8 feet tall or 2.5 meters is because the man's head was hitting the second floor balcony of that abandoned home. And that wasn't even the end of it. He also could tell that this man was wearing no clothes or shoes. He is completely naked. By this point, the guy is about to walk right next to him, and the only thing that he thought of doing is saying good evening to the guy. So in Spanish, he looks at the guy and says buenas noches, and the only thing that this guy did was turn to look at him. He looked at him and smiled, but it wasn't no normal smile. He says that it looked psychotic. So the way he describes it is he had a really big smile from ear to ear, but that his eyes were so wide open. Like this. Scaring myself. Or was it that? So as this guy is smiling from ear to ear with his eyes wide open, turns to look at him after he says good evening to him, he notices that the guy is now crossing the street and is about to go in his direction. And the only thing that he thought of doing was getting this pocket knife that he had in his backpack. He said that he was ready to fight for his life and that he thought running away was not an option, being that this guy was huge. He would catch him like no matter how fast he ran. And honestly, he also didn't want to run because there's no fucking way that he would give this thing his back. In that moment where this guy is like walking towards him and he says that it must have been seconds, like seconds where this guy is about to get to him and it felt like forever, is when he noticed that there were two bright lights of like a car coming in their direction. He realized that it was a truck that was just about to drive, and what he did is stand right in front of that truck to where like you can't go anywhere unless you want to hit me. He's pleading this guy in the truck for a ride, and because of how he looked, because how scared he was, this guy ends up telling him to get into the truck. Thankfully, the guy was already driving towards his hometown, and he does end up dropping him off right in front of his house. When he enters his home, he cannot control his body. He's physically shaking. That expression that that giant man gave him with a big smile and the eyes wide open, he says that he cannot erase that from his memory. He does end up having a conversation with his family and explaining to all of them what he saw. They did take him very seriously. They didn't tell him he was lying or anything, but they believe that what he saw that night was a demon. And not just that, the family also firmly believes that that guy showing up in that truck that night was help from like beyond. The reason why they do think that is because it is so rare for somebody to actually give you a ride not knowing you and being in the middle of like this road. He must admit that he is a skeptic to these paranormal things, but this situation, this thing that he lived that night, he has no answer for it. He has no idea what to make of this. Unfortunately, this is where the story ends, but like my question is, did the guy in the truck see that giant? Because by that point he was about to like walk into his side of the road, because like where did the giant go? Or did he not ask him? Honestly, he was probably scared as fuck to the point to not ask him, and being that he really wanted that ride, yeah, I wouldn't bring it up again either. But what do you guys think?
Get ready with me while I tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal experiences, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. I didn't know I left the room that night, but something downstairs was waiting for me when I woke up. I need to start the story with something important. In my entire life, I have only ever sleepwalked once, and it happened on the same night as this. This story is told from both my perspective and my partner's at the time. That night started off completely normal. We were in my bedroom just laying there watching TV, sharing snacks, half paying attention to whatever was playing while we talked and laughed. It was comfortable, the kind of comfortable night that doesn't make you think twice. But my house has always felt a little off. Admittedly, nothing extreme, just small things. Scratching noises in the walls sometimes, like something dragging slowly from one end to the other. How is that not? That's extreme in my book. That's extreme to me. My animals, who are usually calm, would randomly growl or stare into corners of my bedroom like something was there, even when nothing was. Still, I never let it get to me. Not really, until that night. Eventually, we turned everything off, the TV, the lights, and we went to sleep. Sometime later, around 3 a.m, of course it was, my partner woke up. He remembers it not being like a gradual, normal wake up. He said it felt like something pulled him awake. And when he turned to look at my side of the bed, I wasn't there. At first, he thought maybe I had just gone to the bathroom. But then he looked up and saw me. I was standing at the foot of the bed, completely still, facing the wardrobe. Oh my God. He said the room felt wrong. It felt too quiet, too heavy, like the air itself had changed. But he tried to brush it off, and so he called my name, softly at first. And that's when I turned around. Oh, guys, I can't even speak. I can't even speak because this genuinely is terrifying me. I don't like this. My eyes were closed, fully closed, but somehow he said it still felt like I was looking directly at him. Oh, like something behind my eyes was aware of him, watching him. And then I spoke. Shut up and go back to sleep. He said that my voice didn't sound like me. Oh my God. It was quieter, flatter, almost detached. He sat up a little confused now. Babe, come back to bed, it's late. And that's when I started moving. Don't do that. Don't do that. Slowly toward him. And as I got closer, I started whispering something under my breath. He couldn't understand it. He said it wasn't English. It wasn't anything he recognized at all. Just slow, quiet muttering over and over again. The closer I got, the more unsettled he felt, until I was right next to him, close enough that he could hear my breathing. And then, clear as anything, I leaned in and whispered, "Shh, he'll hear you." Carl. He said something about the way I said it made his entire body go cold, like whoever I was talking about was in the room with us. At that point, he didn't try to argue. He just rolled over and closed his eyes and pretended to go back to sleep because something about it didn't feel like me anymore. He said he heard me stand there for a few more seconds, just lingering. Yeah. Then I turned, walked out of the room, and slowly closed the bedroom door behind me. Girl, where are you going? Ugh, can you imagine? Oh my God, okay. Can you imagine somebody, their eyes are closed, you wake up, they're standing at the foot of the bed staring into nothing, and then they walk over to you, their eyes are still closed, they're like, shut up. No! And then for them to like walk up to you and be like, shh. I don't like this story, guys. This one's really, really giving me the heebie-jeebies. That's his side of the story, because at that exact same time, I woke up downstairs on the couch in the living room. I had no memory of getting there, no memory of leaving the bed or standing in the room or even talking to him, nothing. It was like my mind was just dark. The only light in the room was a small lamp in the corner casting this dim yellow glow that barely reached the walls, and everything felt still. And then out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Just for a second, something shifted near the doorway. I turned slowly, and that's when I saw it. A shadow peeking around the corner. Guys, I'm spooked. I'm spooked. Not moving quickly, not hiding, just leaning slightly into view. Oh my God. Like it wanted me to notice it. Like it had been waiting for me to look. I couldn't make out a face or a body, just darkness shaped like something that shouldn't have been there. I didn't wait for anything else to happen. I ran as fast as I could straight upstairs back to my bedroom. I didn't check for anything. I just got into bed and forced my eyes shut, trying to convince myself that it was nothing, that I was just dreaming, that it wasn't real. And then morning came and everything felt normal again, until we started talking. And my partner told me everything that had happened. Every detail. The way I stood at the end of the bed, the way I spoke, the whispering, the warning, he'll hear you. And I told him what I saw downstairs about the shadow watching me. And that's when I noticed something else. Something else? This wasn't enough? My leg felt sore, really sore. So I pulled up my pajama pants. There was a bruise on my calf, huge, perfectly round, about the size of a baseball. I had no memory of hitting anything. No idea how it got there, nothing that could explain it. And to this day, I still don't know what happened that night. Was it just a bad dream or some kind of sleepwalking episode mixed with my brain playing tricks on me? Or was there something else in the house? Something that I could see, something that was close enough to leave a mark, and something that I warned my partner about without even being awake. Because the part that still doesn't sit right with me isn't the sleepwalking. It's what I said. He'll hear you. Like I already knew that we weren't alone.
It's story time while I try to fix this strawberry shortcake store-bought slime Appalachian Mountain edition. I get these slimes from 5 and Below, y'all. 5 and Below. It's been so... Okay, I'm finna crash out. Natalie spends the summer in the Appalachian Mountains. Ooh, I don't have a smell. It smell like they tried to put smell in here. She be spending the summer with her grandma. So she practically grew up... Oh my gosh, ew. She practically grew up in the Appalachian Mountain like region. Like she knows about the stories. It's like super sticky. This is the first one that's been like bad. Natalie knows not to go outside at night. She knows not to whistle in the woods. She knows what could be lurking in the forest, though she never really believed it. It's literally sticking to everything. Like, I swear I'm not over-exaggerating it. Like, okay. Natalie ends up making a friend called Star. Now, Star, she knows nothing about the Appalachian region. Though she's heard stories on TikTok and on Instagram, she's never really freaking believed it. And yes, we have to pull out the big guns because this slime is super sticky and yeah. Summer and Natalie click extremely fast, and Natalie tries to warn Summer of what could await in the forest. But Summer's one of those girls who don't follow nobody. She don't care what nobody gotta say. She gonna do what she wanna do. Now, Natalie's grandparents were going to be leaving her the house because they were, I think they were going to be gone for the weekend. I actually have to go check. Yeah, y'all, they were going to be gone for the weekend. So Summer ends up convincing Natalie to do things she knows she ain't supposed to be doing, like going outside at night. I'm gonna try my hardest to save this slime. It's just like a bit unactivated. When Natalie invites Summer over, they're having a good time. Like, all day they're having fun. They're eating marshmallows by the campfire. By a certain time, Natalie knows she's supposed to be in that house and she's not supposed to be outside. But what does Summer do? She peer pressures her. Summer tells Natalie that they're gonna tell like a little scary story time because what could happen? Who is gonna hurt them out here? Like, nothing, ghosts don't exist. They're telling scary story times by the campfire when they're supposed to be inside, when all of a sudden everything goes quiet. They can't hear nothing. No bug, nothing. Everything is silent. That's when Summer gets the bright idea to whistle. Now, there's a lot of stigma around whistling. Some people say whistling calls the devil. Some people say you're not supposed to whistle in the house because it can call the devil. There's a lot of stigma around whistling. But one thing I know you're not supposed to do for sure is whistle in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. Okay? I think I fixed it to an extent, but it's still like, you know, it's not as sticky. I feel like I did a good job by like adding more glue and activating it. And now I'm going to add these little cute little bead things. I accidentally said the story wrong. She whistled before everything went silent. My bad. So when Summer whistled, everything goes quiet. And it's so quiet that you could literally hear a pin drop 10 feet away. Like, that's how quiet it is. So when Summer whistles, Natalie like tells her stop doing that. And she doesn't listen. She keeps going. Summer only stops when she hears her name being called. Now, Natalie can't hear this. Only Summer can. And then they both hear a creak, like someone stepping on something in the bushes. Because in the backyard of Natalie's grandparents' home, it's nothing but woods. It's literally woods. That's why they have a rule that you're supposed to be in the house before nightfall. The creaks and the cracks start getting louder and louder and louder and louder to where it sounds like it's by the edge of the bush line. This is where they both hear this screeching, almost ringing sound and it's like hurting their ears. So they both run inside. They made it inside just in time because guess what they see coming out the bushes? Something on all fours, pale white, mouth open. I'm done. No. They watched that thing all night right before sunrise and it went right back into the woods. Natalie never seen that thing again and she stopped talking to Summer after that. I would too. I mean, I don't know what's with all these story times of people just like completely disobeying like rules that certain people follow in a certain area, but y'all need to stop. I think I did fix this slime because, yeah, like, I know her name is Blueberry Muffin before anyone says she's not Strawberry Shortcake. She's a part of the Strawberry Shortcake friend group. Bye, guys. It's been so long I almost forgot, but get your money's worth and let it drain. Bye, guys.